Hi there! Today we have the ROG Flow X16 in the studio. With its sleek 16-inch design, high-end AMD and NVIDIA components, and a QHD+ 165Hz mini-LED display, this thing is packed with all the latest and greatest. Oh, and it's a 2-in-1, so if you're into giant tablets or into anything that requires a digital pen, this might be the best all-around laptop on the market right now. If it's any good and can actually deliver a great experience, we will tell you in our review. Asus's Flow lineup started last year with the X13, a sleek 13-inch convertible that rocked a speedy Ryzen CPU and a dedicated NVIDIA GPU. For everyone wanting to use their Ultrabook as a full-on gamer, they also introduced their XG Mobile external GPU and RTX 3080. 4K gaming with a 13-inch Ultrabook, this combo made it possible. This year the X13 gets a bigger brother, the X16, and boy is it bigger and better in almost every way. Our review unit comes with a Ryzen 9 6900HS, RTX 3070 Ti with up to 125 watts, 32 GB of DDR5 RAM and a 1TB SSD. It is also one of the first available devices with an 1100 nits peak brightness mini-LED display. With a 165Hz refresh rate, insane HDR capabilities and very good color reproduction, this display could be the new gold standard for content consumption, gaming and content creation. ROG is using a magnesium plastic material mix in a dark grey color. With its design, the Flow X16 is walking the thin line between gamery yet understated enough for the office if no one looks too closely. The chassis feels very sturdy and very rigid and there's only minimal flex. This being a big 2-in-1 with a glass top touchscreen, it is a little top heavy and you might want to be careful when you pick it up since the screen might move down on its own. This fluidity makes adjusting the flexible gamer into tablet mode pretty easy though, so I guess it is just a compromise they had to make. Compared to the competition, the Flow is one of the smallest and also lightest devices, and is indeed very easy to carry around. If you are looking for a detailed comparison with other 16-inch gaming and content creation laptops, please head over to our website. In terms of ports, the Flow doesn't disappoint either, especially if you factor in other 16-inch performance notebooks that only come with a few USB-C ports. I'm looking at you, MSI and Gigabyte. On the right side of the gaming convertible, you can find two USB-A 3.2 Gen 2 ports, the power button and a micro SD card reader. I personally don't think these are that useful and would have preferred a full-size SD card reader. If you got a lot of devices that use micro SD cards though, the reader provides excellent transfer rates. On the left you can find an HDMI 2.0B port with G-Sync support, a USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, the power connector and an audio port. Under a small rubber cover you can find Asus's proprietary eGPU connector. It consists of a PCIe 3.0 8x connection and another USB-C that can also be used for data, power delivery, and this one is also wired directly to the dedicated GPU inside of the X16. The XG Mobile itself is a very compact external mobile 3080 with a 150 watt power budget and with 4 additional USB-A ports, a display port, HDMI and a network check, not only boosts your GPU performance, but is actually a full-fledged docking solution. While the performance gains compared to the integrated RTX 3070 Ti might be marginal, we might still do a proper test to see if the XG Mobile is worth the extra cash. Please let us know in the comments below if that is something you would like to see. In terms of wireless communication, we got very good results from the MediaTek card used by Asus. It is not as fast as the latest Intel models, but the difference should be marginal in real-world scenarios. Opening the Slim Gamer is relatively easy and in stark contrast to other devices like the Predator Trident retested recently, you can actually do something in here. You have access to 2 NVMe SSD slots, the Wi-Fi card and the memory. Both the keyboard and the touchpad left a very favorable impression during our testing. I personally would have preferred a clearer pressure point while typing, but overall this is hardly something to complain about. In typical ROG fashion, you got a few extra keys above the actual keyboard and smaller arrow keys and the usual half enter, half hashtag layout. Very handy when doing social media posts, by the way. The glass top touchpad is very spacious for all sorts of sliding, clicking and gesture actions and worked very well during our testing. You can also interact with the ROG via the display, which is both a touchscreen and supports an active stylus. Alright guys, let's talk display. To make it short, this thing is absolutely awesome. No matter if you're gaming, consuming or creating content, the mini LED screen is amazing and in typical Asus fashion very well implemented, but more on that later. With around 1100 nits peak brightness in HDR and more than 500 nits in SDR, you can easily use the Flow X16 outdoors, even on a sunny day. Contrast in SDR easily quadruples the numbers we are used to see in average IPS panels. And while the blacks are not as absolute as your typical OLED display, they beat every other panel technology with ease. While Dell's XPS 17 still holds the ground when it comes to color gamut coverage, almost 100% for sRGB and DCI-P3 and a very good 90% for Adobe RGB, turned a 165Hz gaming display into a solid option for everyone working in the creative industry. While color reproduction out of the box is already pretty good, manual calibration improves things even further. And here Asus's attention to detail comes to light. While we had some problems calibrating mini LED displays in the past, and using them for creative color grading applications in Photoshop for example, proved a little difficult due to the specific behavior of the mini LEDs. Inside the ROG Armory Crate software, you can switch the backlight to behave like a single traditional backlight zone. This removes all strange color and contrast transitions we have seen in other mini LED devices and turn the Flow X16 into a proper creative powerhouse. Since this thing is under the ROG brand, gamers will be pleased with the solid 11 milliseconds response time and the amazing HDR capabilities of the powerful convertible. While support is still dependent on the game, HDR gaming came a long way over the past few years and can be a completely new experience. In games like Spider-Man, Cyberpunk 2077 and Horizon Zero Dawn for example, the display can show what it is capable of. If you transition from a dark neon light lit room in Night City into the street and stare into the glaring sun, you almost want to put on sunglasses. It's amazing. For content consumption, the display is also supporting Dolby Vision, and since HDR is supported in the Windows desktop app, turn the Flow into the Netflix machine to beat. At least as long as you are plugged in, since for whatever reason HDR is disabled on battery. We really hope Asus is able to fix that and give the user the option with a software update. The best display isn't worth anything if it cannot be fed with frames properly in a gaming laptop. While the Flow X16 will also be available with an RTX 3050 Ti or 3060, our review unit is the top of the line model with an RTX 3070 Ti and a powerful 8-core Ryzen 9 6900HS. The still relatively new Ryzen CPU gets between 45 and 74 watts depending on the performance mode. Given that the HS CPUs are actually classed as 35 watt silicon, ROG was able to squeeze a lot of performance out of this specific chip. While the AMD chips can't really keep up with Intel's latest Alder Lake CPUs in multi-core applications, the Flow is still providing adequate computing muscle in CPU workloads, and can for example outperform Apple's bigger MacBook Pros without any problems. For our detailed test results for CPU performance, please head over to our written review. My colleague Marvin spent a ton of time to test the X16 thoroughly. In terms of general system performance that we test with PCMark, the ROG laptop is again positioning itself slightly above the average of all the latest devices we tested recently. Subjectively, the performance experience is excellent. Apps launch almost instantaneously and the 165Hz screen makes everything feel very snappy, and you can open browser tabs and watch 4K YouTube videos to your heart's content. While the Micron NVMe PCIe Gen 4 drive delivers excellent results, our benchmark list is crowned by Samsung equipped laptops. The performance difference should hardly be noticeable in everyday use, but should you require more storage space or a faster drive, you can easily add a second SSD without too much trouble. While some competitors of the Flow X16 might take the lead in raw CPU performance with their power-hungry Alder Lake chips, Asus is using the extra watts saved by the Ryzen CPU to juice up the RTX 3070 Ti. With up to 125 watts including dynamic boost, the Flow is able to outperform even some RTX 3080 Ti equipped models that can only run their GPU at 90 watts. The benchmark results are excellent, especially considering that the faster models in our database are usually much thicker and heavier laptops that just have much more room for cooling and much higher power targets. In terms of real-world gaming performance, the gaming convertible can provide a smooth 60 FPS gaming experience in almost all titles currently available. In graphically very demanding games with ray tracing support, frame rates can dip into the lower 40s occasionally, but that can easily be rectified by adjusting some settings, dropping the resolution to Full HD, or use NVIDIA's DLSS upscaling technology. With that, even 4K gaming is possible with the ROG Flow. In either scenarios or light workloads, the X16 is either dead silent or barely audible. Even light content creation tasks like editing photos in Photoshop aren't followed by unpleasant noise from the 3 fans inside the slim convertible chassis. In performance mode, the Flow is well behaved even under load, and only in our 1-hour stress test the convertible gets really loud. Since this holds true for almost all gaming laptops these days, we are actually very surprised by the amount of cooling potential ROG was able to put inside of this thing. When running the Flow under load for longer, the chassis around the keyboard area only gets slightly warmer, without ever venturing into unpleasant territory. If you use this puppy in tablet mode for photo editing, for example, just be aware that the display heats up quite a bit, which may result in sweaty palms every now and then. But again, it never really bothered me personally. ROG managed to achieve something with the Flow speakers that only a handful other competitors were able to do. Actually deliver a solid sound experience, so you don't immediately have to look for your headphones whenever you want to watch some YouTube or Netflix or casually listening to music. Even though the Flow is using a more efficient Ryzen CPU, the power-hungry display is for sure not helping with battery life. A little more than 5.5 hours in our web surfing test is nothing to write home about, and even some Intel-equipped laptops offer better results. Alright folks, let's wrap things up. A laptop these days is almost always a compromise between size, performance and battery life. And what works best for you is usually very much dependent on what you want to do with your laptop. While the ROG Flow X16 might be primarily targeted towards gamers, it walks this thin line of compromise very strategically and might please actually almost everyone. The display is a class of its own. If you're a gamer, you will enjoy the fast response times, amazing HDR capabilities and high refresh rate. Content creators benefit from the excellent color gamut and the possibility to calibrate the display properly. And if you are more into content consumption, this thing is amazing for movies and all the latest Netflix hits. With its sleek chassis, relatively low weight, solid I/O and inputs, and even niche features like the 2-in-1 functionality and pen support, the Flow ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of different use cases. While it is kinda doing everything, it is also doing everything really well. So you do not really have to give up anything for features you personally don't need. In terms of performance, it might not be able to take the performance ground from high-powered Intel-equipped laptops, nor does it offer the highest GPU scores, but it is again a very well-rounded package, with well-tuned fans and very bearable temperatures. Well, that would be it for today. Again, since there is so much going on with this thing, please head over to our written review or feel free to put all of your questions in the comments. We always do our very best to get back to you. If you like what we are doing here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Alex, you have been amazing and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Take care.